Welcome back, everybody. Thirsty Thursday, number 25. This is the conclusion of the first season, the first year of Thirsty Thursdays for Strike the Box. So, with that being said, we're going to go ahead and get started and kick things off. Tonight, we have the one and only Skip Carey joining us tonight, and we're talking about history and tradition in the fire service. And before we go any further, cheers, brothers. It's always good to see you. And in continuation of St. Patty's Day, so the reason we have Skip on with us tonight is again, we're talking history and tradition, and since Skip wrote most of it and was there for most of it, we thought it was the most appropriate person to join us. So love you, Skip.
Love you all.
So as we get moving through tonight, if you guys, for those of you that are joining us, put your comments down in the comment section on Facebook and YouTube. We'll be sure to kick those up and chat about those. But just looking for a great conversation tonight about some of the great stuff and stuff that we've seen and changes in the traditions in the fire service. So with that being said, we'll just kind of kick it around and we'll get down to Skip to do a little intro.
One of the things that I think is critical nowadays in the fire service is that we impart the importance of tradition to the troops. Everybody gets hung up on tradition. Oh, we can't do it that way, anything new because we did it that way and it's tradition. Well, tradition is a truly double-edged sword. It's an anchor that holds you in the past, very much so. But it's also a sail that will carry you to the future. And without us imparting to the young troops the traditions and why they're there, simple thing, why is it called a plug? Why is it called a hose wagon? Why is it called a Halligan bar? Unless they know that, I don't feel that they can have the love or the concern for the fire service. It's a way of life. It's not necessarily a job, and every one of the four of us here have earned a living by doing it. But every one of the four of us here have done it for nothing, because we love it. We teach, all four of us teach because we love it. And we love it because of the tradition and the knowledge that was placed in us and the worth of that when we came in, I just think the history and the tradition are something that we don't teach enough of nowadays. In the old days in Maryland, in the 60-hour basic class, we had a whole section on tradition that we taught. And that sort of ended up becoming about a paragraph or two now and gone by the wayside. But it's important. If I know why and I understand, why things are, why the medals and FDNY are what they are, how they came, I have a better understanding and a better appreciation. And if I have a better appreciation of the job, I will do the job better. And it will not become a job. It will not become a task. It will become a labor of love. Even though you're crawling down that hallway to that back bedroom and you're asking yourself why you're doing it, or you're bailing out off of the roof and saying, why am I up here? It's still a labor of love, Oh, that. Yeah, right, Craddy. That's my thoughts on it, on why it's important.
Thanks, Skip. What just before we go any further, could you share like your years of experience, kind of where you've been, and what you did? I'm going to say real quick, but we all know that that's not the case.
Contrary to popular belief, I was not in the Salisbury Fire Department when we had horses.
Okay? That was one of the things I was going to ask you.
Yeah, because I knew one of you three would. I started in 1966 when in Salisbury as a volley, and I spent 26 years and a couple of days there as a volley. And then I went to Ocean Pines as a career paramedic and firefighter. And when my wife, who was president at the time, got the letter from Fair Labor that said you couldn't volley where you got paid, he said, you can't come back anymore unless we call you. So then I went over to the beach, and I spent 10 years over there. Ended up, some of the best years I had was when Trevor and I were the co-captains of training. He was career and I was volley. And we had some kick-ass training in those days. Some good times. I taught for the University of Maryland for 20 years all over the state. I primarily taught the rescue program and the intermediate or advanced at that time fire program, which was tactics, special fires, and TCO. I spent 12 years as a ladder captain, 100-foot rear mount La France. Had some of the greatest times there. I ended up at Salisbury as assistant chief a couple of times. I wasn't worth a damn as an assistant chief, flat out. I wanted to be inside, putting the wet stuff on the red stuff or cutting a hole in the roof. And consequently, I did get to do that. And then ultimately at the beach, I ended up being a lieutenant and a lieutenant and then the captain in charge of training, and had a blast there with the diagonal honor people there. We had some good times, very good times there. And I retired from there with 51 active years. I was an interior firefighter or on the roof all the time. The day before I retired, I was a captain in charge of a fire at the beach. So I didn't spend 25 years like a lot of people do as a firefighter. I didn't spend another 25 sitting in the back bitching about everything. I bitched from the front row the whole time. And I'd like to think I made an impression on some people, good impression. I know I definitely made a bad impression on a few, but it was interesting. My dad was a volunteer at Salisbury. One of my wives was a volunteer there. My oldest son was a volunteer there. And it was an interesting, the whole 51 years, an interesting time. I paid the price with a couple of marriages. I got banged up a lot because I was where the action was. That's where I wanted to be. Do I regret either single minute of it? Absolutely not. If I was young enough, or even if my body worked well enough, I'd still be doing it. It's the greatest and most rewarding thing that I think there is, other than a military career. And a military career and it are pretty much the same thing, really. That's me.
Thanks, Skip.
What you see is what you get.
So I know one of the things that I was thinking about as we were getting ready for this, you guys have seen a lot of change in your careers in the fire service. So what has been the biggest and maybe the most impactful change that you guys have seen since you started? And that can kind of go to whoever. So we'll just kind of open that up to everybody.
Well, Ben, if you don't mind, if I'd kind of add my voice to the chorus here for a minute. I just want to start out by saying, Skip, thank you very much for coming on, and Ben and Bobby, as always, appreciate you being here. Skip is a person I've had the privilege of not only learning from, but also learning with. Had a chance to be his student, his co-worker, and then a fellow instructor. So that's a very unique opportunity to be able to go through part of your fire service career with somebody, and also be able to share that part of history. And Ben, you and I had an offline conversation earlier that we look at history in the fire service and we talk about this big call, that big call, 9/11, the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory, the case studies, this, that, and the other. But what people in the fire service, I think, really need to realize right now, and this didn't become apparent to me until more recent years, you're living part of your fire department's history right now. And you might not realize it or understand that your impact. And just like Skip was saying, if you want to make an impression in the fire service, make sure it's more than your ass dent in the frickin' recliner in the day room. And with that being said, you have no idea the amount of influence that you have, whether it's just how you treated somebody today on the job, maybe a small comment. And I remember at my first retirement party, I'll put it that way, people would come up to me and say, "Hey, I remember you said this to me." And I really didn't have that much of a memory of it, but they did. And it was indelible. And to me, it might have been something that was just very kind of in the line of duty or something inconsequential. But you really have to understand what impact that you do have, and also appreciate the history of your department. And this is where I want to kind of bring Skip into the fold again. And once we go around the horn, is Skip was the commandant of our academy class, the last class that him and I taught together, and that was one of the great things is that not only bringing Skip in to talk about history and tradition in the fire service, because he's been just a purveyor of that and a great historian, but also when we had the guys sit down with the retirees for lunch, and that was probably one of the few breaks they got, but just to sit down and shut up and listen for a few minutes. We stand on the shoulders of a lot of great people that came before us. And unfortunately, sometimes those names and faces erode with the sands of time, honestly. And we can't let that happen because there's a lot of great information that's occurred. I look at some of the calls that, even before I worked with Skip in Ocean City, I go back to the, when you were, I don't remember if you were assistant chief or ladder captain. And I think you were, you were the train tracks on the ladder one out of Salisbury. And actually, Fulton Bagwell, God rest his soul, was the assistant chief. We had the Willard's Lions Club fire, and it was one of those y'all come big deal fires. And of course, we're all there doing the deed. And I still remember to this day, getting as close to the building as we could. We were in that extinguishment culture that our brother Ray talks about quite a bit, trying to get it done. And they said, "Okay, pull back. The building's unstable." And right about the time we were pulling back, the wall starts coming down, and Skip and I, body style wise, are a little bit different. Not too bad. He's more like a leprechaun. I'm more like not. But anyway, I'm more of a husky kid, and I just still remember us both running away from a collapsing wall, and all of a sudden, Skip and I are the same height, and his legs are going like this, and Mike Hickman had a hold of both of our asses because he was behind us, pushing us away from the building as we were all escaping. And when Skip was one of my instructors, saying, "Hey, son, you boys don't want to go up that stairwell at this controlled burn." And I'll let Skip tell that story. But, Skip, I'll say this, and you might want to mark this as a point in history. You were right. That's all I'm going to say. I'll leave it there. But anyway, the whole point of my rant is this. Realize that, there's a lot of great people who've contributed to the history of your department, known and unknown to you. But right now, you are living and making part of the history in your department. And if you don't have any traditions, now might be a good time to start some. And we'll talk about that here in a few minutes. But I want to kick it around the horn. And then, Skip, if you don't mind regaling us a little bit with maybe a young firefighter who was a little bit too big for his britches, and how you kind of brought us back to center. But, Bobby and Ben, if you guys want to go around the horn real quick with stuff, and then we'll kick it back to Skip.
Go ahead, Bobby.
Okay, well, it's so good to have Skip here. He's been such a friend to us for so many years. I first met Skip in the 80s. Skip was my first high angle instructor back when it was fun. But, all of us here know what a Ben Franklin helmet is, and Skip actually knew Ben Franklin. Hi, Skip. Ben, you asked me a good question, what changed, and you guys know, and people that work with me know, and anyone who watches the show knows that I'm really a science geek. I'm crazy about the science of what we do. Why does this hose line work? Why does this nozzle work? Why does what's happening with fire and the ventilation impact studies and the stream management studies and all the stuff that's going on has been absolutely phenomenal. And if you can couple that with the history of the fire service, the commitment to go inside, the commitment to rescue people, and then plug that science in, not forgetting about the history of our mission. Because there was a time just a few years ago, where I felt like the history was lost and the science was kind of being interpreted as we're not supposed to do our job anymore. As a matter of fact, it kind of felt like we were being told we were fools for doing our job of getting deep inside of a building on fire or trying to rescue the people inside of that building. So, I'm so excited today. Last night, what I did for St. Patrick's Day was I taught a firefighter 1 class. You know what? There wasn't a better place to be. We have a brand new curriculum. It's from IFSTA. And as many people know, I was not a very big IFSTA fan for a long time. I thought they really fell off in doing some of their stuff, but this program is fantastic. Trevor, you'll be happy to hear there's 6 hours and over 200 slides just for fire behavior alone.
You're kidding.
No, there's 6 hours just in building construction. If you get your hands on that manual, the manual is that thick from IFSTA. It's phenomenal. Oh, we lost Skip. Internet in Ocean Pines.
Hey, can you issue the silver alert, please, until we get Skip back? Go ahead, Bobby. Sorry.
Yeah, he knew Ben Franklin. He just didn't know what's his name, Bell. But anyway, so exciting things. I just read the new fire engineering today, and it was absolutely phenomenal. There's an article, the editor's article from Bobby Halton was the first one, and it's something that everybody that is entering the fire service now should read about why we take the risk, and why some people don't think we should take the risk. It's a phenomenal thing for a brand new guy to read. The second article, our friend Ray McCormick wrote a simple, very basic hand line deployment in the front of a structure. A little bit of a spin on a different change in how you lay your hand line out, which makes great sense. So he's took an old tradition and an old style, and he's actually gave it a good twist. And the last one is Nick Pappas. And his is a very extensive and comprehensive article on what we used to call tactical ventilation at a whole nother level. Recognizing the science, recognizing the flow paths, recognizing hand lines in place, and so you go through these three, and it's almost like you can go through a basic, an intermediate, and an advanced all in one magazine. So all those things are where I think you tie the tradition together with the science. And the tradition is we go in and we help people and we save their stuff. And the science is how to do it better. And I think that was lost in the fire service, and I feel very confident it's coming back in the fire service. And now it's about helping all of our firefighters get to that level where in their heart they can commit to going inside of these buildings, but in their mind and their hands they learn how to do it without getting killed. And I think that's, to me, that's kind of ties it all together. And there's lots of other traditions. I mean, Trevor, while we're waiting for Skip to get back online, I don't want to put you on the spot, but man, I so loved when you talked about the history of the Maltese Cross and the New Yorker helmet in our graduation class for one of our academy classes. You want to try to talk about that for a little bit while Ben gets Skip back on here?
Bobby, don't threaten me with a good time. All right, yeah, I'll definitely do that. And that's one of the things that, I came from a department that had a lot of history where I served with you guys and Skip, to a department that had it only started in the 1960s, and so that was very weird for me. I mean, I was used to a lot more from the Mid-Atlantic and northern states, and they certainly had some of their traditions, which we've not only kept but we've also enhanced. But that's what I want to encourage some folks too. If you don't have a lot of history, and I'm not saying contrive something, but if you don't have any traditions, you can always bring some up. And one of the things I thought was so great in Ocean City, and I've transported that down here, was the badge pinning and explaining the meaning of the Maltese Cross and the sacrifice that those soldiers made. way back in the day to brave the heat and smoke and certain death to save their brothers. So that was one of the things that when we give the badge to somebody, and I do this, I make sure that when we do our badge pinning, it's not just a ceremony for the firefighter and their family and friends. That's vitally important. We do it at a commission meeting or a council meeting, essentially. So the mayor, the commission, and the public are there. And the firefighter paramedic is there. When they receive their badge, they're told, this isn't just an outward and visible sign of your job. And we talk about the history behind the Maltese Cross, but this is a contract between you and the community that you serve. This is a shield. This is your protection for them. And so when they accept that badge, they accept an obligation. And so at that point in time, they're looking at the very people they're going to be serving, and the people they're serving are looking them in the eye. And of course, we also recognize the families, because when you all are away, and Ben, you've got a young family now, when you all are away during regular shifts, you leave in the middle of the night for the volunteers who get up and go and at a moment's notice, or we're at a deployment such as a hurricane, you're serving hundreds or thousands of families while yours is back home taking care of themselves, essentially. So we got to remember the other folks that serve in this is our families, our spouses, our children, and and they certainly paid the sacrifice as well. And we always make sure that we acknowledge them. One of the things is, Bobby, you're talking about too, and of course I bring the shameless props with me, is we're all big into wearing our helmets, our leather helmets, or this style of helmet, and that's a great thing. But we didn't invent this. There's a lot of emphasis on what's going on, and Ben, hopefully when we skip back, I'd love for him to talk about it, because he says it so much more eloquently than I can. But if you look at a helmet, even the ones that are made from the composites, if you look on the back brim and you see the scroll work of the evergreen, that's something that we took from soldiers of long ago, who if they had saved the life of their brethren in the line of duty, they wore a wreath of evergreen around their head when they marched through parades. Well, the American Fire Service had brought that in. Look at that, Skip. Hey, cancel the silver alert. Silver alert is canceled. Skip Carey is back. Look at that. Skip, I'm not going to steal your thunder. We were right in the middle of talking about the leather helmet, but what I was getting at was the scroll work on the back. When we've imported that with the American Fire Service. Ben Franklin, your fraternity brother, I believe, from Eta Mesa Pi, whatever fraternity you were in back in the day. But we look at that, and the scroll work on the back is reminiscent of the evergreen, and that was transported in from ancient times. But the first American firefighters, if they had saved a life in the performance of their duties, when they walked in the annual parades in their communities, their helmets were adorned with a wreath of evergreen. That's scrolled into our helmets to remind us that our job is to save lives. We are here for the service of others and the protection of others. So every firefighter now has that scrolled in their helmet, and a lot of them don't even realize it. And even at that, and again, Skip, I want you to take this, because I'm going to talk about the 8 comb, but I know you've worn a 16 and I believe a 64 comb. I'm not 100% sure, but you look at the 8 different combs that are on a leather helmet. Oh, and by the way, Skip, I'm sorry. I think this came off your walker. I will mail this back to you. It got all the way down here. I don't know how, but this tennis ball is coming back to you. I think it's might be the left or right foot of your walker. I'm not sure. But anyway, coming to you in the mail.
It is Florida, so that's probably a common thing down there.
It is, but this actually has the initials WNC on it for WN Carey. So I'm pretty sure this is Skip's. But anyway, coming to you in the hot mail.
You won't live as long as I have. You'll be in the same boat.
Well, if I become fossilized one day, never mind. Anyway, but moving forward, when we talk about the different combs on a leather helmet, the standard one that we have, and even the composite helmets, have typically 8 combs to them. And they represent the 8 points of a Maltese Cross. If you look at the Maltese Cross, they actually have 8 points on them. And the four cardinal virtues are prudence, temperance, justice, and fortitude. But if you expand that out to the 8, it's to live in truth or be truthful, be sincere, be humble, be just, and seek justice, be merciful and compassionate, have endurance, be pure of heart, and be repentant. So we always go back to our roots. We always go back to what we know. So something as simple as this lid that we stick on our head to keep the old brain vault protected has a lot of significance and meaning. So when we set this up on the desk at an academy graduation next to your badge, there's a lot of meaning behind that, and a lot of people that came before us that made a lot of sacrifices. But some firefighters in modern day, and Bobby, to your point, I'm so glad to hear that we're starting to see a resurgence of these things, and it's important to know why. So with that, I'm going to shut up and turn it over to Skip. Actually, FedEx is here to pick this up, so overnight you should get this by 10:30 tomorrow morning. Anyway, Skip, go ahead and continue on with the helmet, please, if you would.
Yeah. The helmet is also, originally, the helmet was a stovepipe hat made out of leather, what they used. And subsequently, that didn't give the protection. If you look at the helmet itself, the back of it keeps the hot water and stuff from going down the neck of your bunker coat. They've added the eye shields on the front, which I've found basically are so you look cool, you know. I never thought they were that good to begin with, and that. But the shield on the front is it's a badge of honor. It's like the old knights of old. When they had their shield, they had their crest painted on it. They carried their shield, fought. You know, it was right there so you could see who they were. That's what this is. It's so people can see who we are, other departments, when we're working. You know, the device that holds the shield in place can be a very simple piece like this, or it can be very ornate. The high eagle helmets that you talk about, they had an 8-inch tall shield. It came way up high and worked like that. The helmet itself is the same as the knight's helmet of old. The other interesting thing, everything Trevor was telling you about the helmet, 3 of us in this 4-picture shot are all brothers in 2 worlds. We're Masonic brothers, plus we're fire service brothers. But a lot of the stuff that Trevor was telling you about also applies to us as Masons, which is kind of interesting, you know, that the 2 worlds cross. And you'll find that a lot of fire service people are Masons. I'd like to go back to something Trevor said before when he talked about a old instructor giving words of wisdom to a young troop. I burned a lot of buildings when I was in Salisbury. We had a lot of old buildings and we burned them. And it was the days before 1403. So we burnt real buildings. We didn't strip them and everything else. You had the carpets on the floor. You had the asbestos shingles popping when you went up. And you had wallpaper.
Skip, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Was that the 1403 NFPA standard or the year 1403? Which one are you talking about?
Standard. The standard. Oh, nice shot. I don't know who put that one.
This was from Skip's class before they went and burned those buildings.
Yeah. But
Skip, this is actually a picture of your first firefighter basic class. We went through up there. Yeah. But go ahead, please.
And you'll notice that's before what is it, that new crap you all are teaching with now?
PowerPoint.
PowerPoint. That was before PowerPoint. We had a building. We burned a lot of buildings in Salisbury, and a lot of the guys from Ocean City, because you can't burn many buildings in Ocean City, you know, because the sandbar, you just can't burn them. Well, they would come up to Salisbury with us. Trevor, May Krantz, you know, a whole bunch of them. They would come up there and have a blast. Well, I'd let them, you know, come on, burn. I'm burning next Saturday. You want to come? We're burning this structure, and it's a 2.5-story structure. And was a second floor attic, Trevor, second floor. Second floor got cooking really good. Well, I had 2 young studs from Salisbury, and I had Trevor and I had May Krantz. And they were firmly convinced they could put the fire out. And a stairway came down, well, it was thunder again, came down and made about a 5-step angle. So I'm standing there like this, and I'm telling them, it's too much. we're going to back out. Oh, no, man, Cap, we can put it out. We'll take these 2 lines up. We'll put it out. Oh, yeah, we can put it out. I said, okay, try it. I'm sitting there leaning like this on the post for the rail. And they go up, they're dancing hose, and and the smoke's rolling down, and it's still black. It ain't changed to white or gray. It's black. And then all of a sudden I hear, and I look, and here come 4 of them rolling down the steps. Kabang! Well, they hit the angle, and it didn't go this way. And I can remember Trevor looked up at me, and I said, I told you so. And it went out. But, that's the kind of training and education we had then. I'm not saying what we have today is bad. I'm just saying it's different. Totally different. And that goes to the tradition. We had the tradition that when I came into fire service in '66, they gave me a pair of waterman's boots, 3/4 boots. They didn't have steel shanks or anything in them. They gave me a black canvas coat with a sewn-in flannel liner that came down to my ankles. No Scotch-Elate on it. They gave us a plastic MSA helmet, which is just a tad better than the helmets we hand out to the kids at fire prevention. You got a pair of brown work gloves and a pair of black oyster gloves, rubberized gloves to put on over. And the training was, and we'll just use, there's Bobby. Follow him. He'll show you what to do. And we followed. And that's part of the tradition of fire service, is the following the individual. And I think the term now is the senior man, isn't it? That you read about, listen to the senior man at the meal table and everything. But that was the tradition, and that's how we learned. And subsequently, we learned that maybe you ought to have some Scotch-Elate on the coat so people can see you in the dark, and maybe a ladder shank and stuff, and a steel insole in the boot would be kind of nice. And maybe it didn't have to come down to the coat, didn't have to come down to your ankles. A lot of things, but the tradition of following the individual that knows. And you have to be very careful, because there's a lot of people in the fire service today that think they know. And there's a lot of people in the fire service that are in positions of training and stuff that have never crawled down that hallway to that back bedroom where that fire's coming out of that door saying, come to me. And if you don't believe fire is a living, breathing entity, you're going to get hurt real quick, real fast, because it's just as alive as either one of the 4 of us here. And you have to understand it, and you have to know it. But, the traditions that we have, the helmets, the badges, the Maltese Cross, the Knights of Malta,
Skip, Skip, I was going to ask about that. Trevor did a fantastic job covering the helmet, but we haven't covered it. Can you talk a little bit about the Maltese Cross and how it came about, and give us the history of that?
I'm not as knowledgeable on that as Trevor is. Okay. I'm not as knowledgeable. I know the Maltese Cross originated with the Knights of Malta, which goes back to something that we're totally familiar with, the Templars and the Hospitallers and all of them. And it goes back to a service organization, But I would say that I would probably misinterpret and say something wrong. I would prefer Trevor to talk about that.
And Skip, I'm going to give the Reader's Digest version, because, of course, there's several versions of history that go along. But when the Knights Templar and the Saracens were at war with each other, the Knights Templar came across a very, very new weapon of war, which was fire. It was naphtha, which, if you kind of
Lost you.
Trevor, we can't hear you, brother.
Yeah. Hey, my son just checked in. Hey, Dad. Hey, Bill.
Hey, you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Outstanding. All right. So essentially, when during the Crusades, when the Knights Templar were fighting against the Saracens, there was a brand new weapon of war, which was essentially fire, and it was that era's version of modern day napalm. Essentially, was a fatty reduction that was thrown over the walls onto the people trying to attack the walls of the fortress, and then they would lob either flaming arrows or balls of fire literally down there. And when literally these soldiers were burning and on fire, their brethren would rush in to save them. And being from the island of Malta, they wore the Maltese Cross, which transitioned into saving your brethren or your fellow man from the ravages of fire and certain death. So those were the kind of our very basic beginnings that kind of came forward in that, and the 8 points of the Maltese Cross that we talked about earlier. And of course, there's different interpretations over the years and some variations, but the thread remains the same: is that it's based in service, it's based in brotherhood, it's based in making sure that so others may live. And these are some of the things that I look at, and I want to kind of circle back to you, Skip, on this, because these are all important things. Like we said, when we do the badge pinning and we give them that shield, that Maltese Cross that goes on their chest as that symbol of protection and obligation, and I use that term very intentionally. It's an obligation as a firefighter, EMT, firefighter, paramedic, whatever your title might be, between you and the people you're serving, and that is an outward and visible sign that you should always remember. And with that, let's go back to the origins of the U.S. Fire Service, where I think we got some folks on the screen here that got a little bit of Irish in them, maybe. I'm not real sure, not 100%. But when there was a lot of immigrants, just saying that there's absolutely no drinking here whatsoever. So going back to the genesis of this in the United States, when the American Fire Service, of course, the father of the American Fire Service being Ben Franklin, and some of the just ingenious things that he came up with that we're still using today, but also looking at when a lot of Irish and Scottish immigrants first came to this country, weren't really welcome and weren't really thought very highly of, and could not get jobs. And Skip, I want you to kind of go through, if you don't mind, the Nina days, the no Irish need apply, and how we as some of those people from those Celtic nations actually became firefighters and police officers, the dangerous jobs that nobody else wanted, and we got the crappiest pay for to do the most dangerous jobs. And you look today, you don't see very many fire department ceremonies without a set of pipes and some kilts. So Skip, would you mind taking it from there?
All right. Originally, the Irish were slaves that were sent over here as slaves. They were less in rank of the slaves rather than the Africans that were sent over. We weren't valued as much as they were. And there were 3 jobs that were open to the Irish, and they were basically the only 3 other than common labor, digging ditches and stuff like that, and that was cop, fire, or priest. That was all there was. It was open to us. And if you stop and look at those 3, what's the common thread in all of those? And it's care and concern for mankind. So while the sign said, dogs and Irish keep off of the grass, no Irish need apply, they had a group of individuals filling a need for the country, the basic care for people of going into fires. If you really stop and look, there isn't a whole lot of difference between cops and firemen and really a priest. Not a whole lot of difference. We're all concerned with mankind, to some degree, we're all concerned with the afterlife as we try to protect everybody. We are basically a very stubborn group, the three job group. You know, a priest won't give up trying to save somebody. A cop won't. And of course, us, the firemen, we won't. You know, there are only two things that go in a burning building. You take a horse in the barn, you get him out of the barn on fire. Unless you secure him, he'll go back in the barn. He goes back in. You know, we go in. Get a fire in an undesirable area and look, and you'll find cockroaches coming out of a fire. Who goes in? Us. Is that a honor? Is that a condemnation? What is it? I think it's very simply that we, along with our brother Elios and a priest, we are concerned with mankind. We're one of the few jobs that are. Doctors and nurses are too. But you don't endanger your life for that. You look at the three categories that I mentioned, and every one of those will endanger your life. One of the coolest people in the world, and one of the first people to die at 9/11 was a priest, the judge. He was there. He didn't have to be there. He was there because it was his job. He was there. He died. You look at the military. There have been 5 chaplains in the history of the United States military that have won the Congressional Medal of Honor. Come on. You know, last rites is something else you're giving somebody. But think about this. Think about back in the beginning when that was the only thing they could do. And they've built upon that. And it's the tradition. And we cannot, we should not ever overlook the tradition. The symbolic of the Maltese Cross, 4 arms interlocked, each supporting the other arm. And if you look at the design of it, it does. It each supports the other arm. The helmet, the laurel wreath on the back. You know, the front, it's a shield like the old knights of old had. You look at all of this stuff, and it's an important part. It is as important as Bobby's knowledge of you multiply the coefficient times this figure or that figure, and you get X number coming out. You know, that's okay. You open the nozzle, the water comes out on wet goes on red, red goes wet. Close the nozzle. Shit. Shoot. Excuse me.
You're good.
We got some good lightning around here. You know, you look at that.
God's mad with you.
What?
Just so you know, God's mad with you for talking about me like that.
Yeah.
Hear it?
I'm talking for him. Hey, you know, I'm talking for him. You know, but you know, you look at that and you stop and you think, and you say to yourself, where are we going? And how are we going to instill this in the young troop coming in? Because my opinion is a lot of things about tradition and the way things are not being taught to the young people of today. By and large, you know, by and large, it's not. So consequently, if they don't have a basic understanding, how is these 4 individuals that faces are here going to take this young kid and say, hey, you know, you got to know why the Maltese Cross has got 4 arms and that, so you can go down that hallway and put the fire out. And the first thing they're going to say is, that old fart's crazy. And they may be right. You know, they may be right. But we're crazy in a good way. And the 4 of us here represent, and we're a wide age group. I guess I'm probably the oldest. I'm probably the oldest here, right?
If I had to guess, yes.
And I'd say,
Hey.
Ben, you're probably the youngest, right?
Hey, Skip,
And-
I'm
and-
pretty sure you weren't you the senior man on Moses' shift?
No, I made the burning bush. I was a lineman on the burning bush. But it's hard, and it's hard to get them to understand. And Trevor, boy, he'll understand. Nobody's ever going to have to get it through his head. Your little girl will understand. My grandchildren understand. My son that kicked in and said, "Hi, Dad," who does the blogs for fire engineering and or for the publishing. He understood from the beginning. Yeah. It's the non-fire person that comes in to the fire department that we've got to be concerned with, and we really have to concentrate on them to get them used to this tradition concept. And a simple little thing, and I know Trevor used to use this all the time about a plug. Why do you call it a plug? And he would draw on the board and show why you called it a plug. Now, or those of us that like destroying things, why do you call it a Halligan bar? Mainly because a little short captain named Hugh Halligan got tired of lugging multiple tools for forcible entry. So he sat down and designed three tools. I'm jumping. He designed three tools into one. And this is why, it's important to them to know this. I think and Trevor was a MIFRE instructor. I was. You weren't, were you, Bobby? You were DSFS instructor.
Well, he's also a MIFRE instructor now.
What? What'd you say, Ben?
He's teaching for MIFRE now too.
You're teaching for MIFRE now too?
You can't say it on the air, Delaware here, Skip. Quiet down.
I can say DSFS. I can say any, what thing I want to say. I'm retired. What are you going to do to me? Take away my pension? We all were instructors, and we have I think we have a duty above and beyond what our teaching organization says we should do. We have a duty, and the fact that we're all officers, which we all are, aren't we? Yeah. Because you're a captain, right, Ben? And Bobby's you're a lieutenant, captain, or admiral, or whatever you're calling it now.
Like background.
And of course, Trevor, he's God. He's got the 5 trumpets, so he can talk to everybody. And I'm just a has-been, old EMS relic, old has-been.
Hey, Skip.
Yeah.
I'll share this with you that old Donald Fisher shared with me, Chief Donald Fisher, and he said it's better to be a has-been than it ever was. So.
Exactly. And have we talked about, speaking of officers and stuff? Have we got into speaking trumpets yet? Rank insignia?
No, not yet. Go ahead.
No, I'm doing all the mouth, and let somebody else mouth.
That's why you're the guest, Skip.
You're probably going to get a whole herd of comments. Why did you ask him to be on the show? What's Liz said? Dang, you hear the thunder in the background. God is enjoying the show. Tradition. Speaking trumpets. They were the first radios, and they worked a heck of a sight better than any of the radios we got. You didn't have any buttons to push or anything. You just put them up to your mouth and yelled through them. Rudy Valley used them when he was doing his shows and stuff. For ones of you that might have parents might remember who Rudy Valley was. They became a symbol of rank. A single trumpet was a lieutenant. Double trumpets were a captain. Cross trumpets were a battalion chief. 3 trumpets were an assistant chief. 4 trumpets were a deputy chief. 5 trumpets were a chief. God, the man, and that.
Here comes more thunder.
More thunder. You, speaking of chiefs, you know what chaos means, don't you?
Yeah.
Probably you're not shaking your head. I know you know, because you used to be one of them. The interesting thing is, ladder companies used a single axe and a double axe for a lieutenant and a captain. Marine divisions, and this is basically Chicago, Boston, and New York, used propellers.
I was going to say they used floaties.
What?
The little arm floaties.
No, arm floaties. A single propeller was a Lou, double propeller was a captain. Rescue companies used a Lyle line gun. Single line gun, Lou, double line gun, the captain. That's pretty much standard. New York has either on the shirt collar or on the lapel of the coat. New York went a little different. They used that on the lapel of the coat, on the cap, on the badge, but on their collars, they used military insignia. They used a single silver bar for a lieutenant, double railroad tracks, just like an Army captain for a captain, and then they went with oak leaves for battalion chiefs, and then they went up into the star, just like the Army. Chief of the department wears 5 stars, like a 5-star general in a circle. Now, but the basic thing, which is on the uniform, on the badge, or on the hat, is the speaking trumpet from the old days when they used them to call forth so they could hear on the fire, because you didn't have as much noise from engines and stuff in those days as you do now. But and not everybody had a speaking trumpet either. Like everybody's got a radio now.
Yeah, not everybody needs a radio either.
That's an interesting.
I'll never forget a little fire service history for us. I'll never forget working with Maycrans at Station 3. And the new guy would come in, and I need to get my radio. And he'd turn and look at him. You don't need no damn radio. You just need to be able to hear, not be able to transmit. Let me take care of that. And he'd take the radio, and he would do something to cover up some of the pins so they could only hear. They wouldn't be able to transmit anything. I was like, holy shit. Holy crap. Or he'd take their radio and he'd give them a pager.
But it's a lot of it is a lot of it's unique, and some of it. Now, ask you guys thoughts. What are your thoughts on the new apparatus?
Do you mean the ones with engines?
Well, Skip, let me put it to you this way. I've seen a resurgence, and I like this a lot, of the old school black over red, the old buggy style. So you start to see that, and of course we have the clean cab concepts and yada 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 yada. But everything old is new, and that's why I tell some of my folks that it's all on a big wheel. When I first started in the fire service, Skip, you were teaching me smooth bores, and a lot of the guys from FDNY in Boston were teaching smooth bores. And then we went to the fog nozzle, and of course Lloyd Lehman, who invented the damn thing, didn't know what he was talking about, and we had a better way to use it. And then, I know Bobby kind of appreciates all that, but and now we've kind of come back almost full circle. And as far as the apparatus goes, it doesn't really matter. We have to modernize. We have to keep up with the demand and our service requirements. But when you get that new piece of apparatus, have a housing for your apparatus. Have the guys back it in, push it in the firehouse. And I still look at some of the things that I've learned from our guys in New York, York, PA, Boston, Baltimore, some of those older, more established, Chicago. all these different places where, and I remember in Ocean City when we would back the apparatus in and it was kind of like a little bit misty out or whatever, we would wash the apparatus down just to keep the road dirt off of it because we have pride in it. And then Skip Carey comes along and says, why are you hosing out the wheel wells of that apparatus? And young kid goes, well, that's what I was taught how to do. But do you know why you're doing it? Well, because my senior man said, or the captain or lieutenant said, do it. Well, no, back in the days when they used to have horse-drawn apparatus, that's where all the horse shit got flung up in there. And that was tradition that when they got back, the young guy hosed out the wheel wells to get the horse crap out of it. And they had no idea. They just did it. So, we haven't seen the tail end or the south end of a northbound horse in a long time, but all those little things come back around. So, and I look at some of the tradition, I'll kind of wrap it up with this, Skip. This kind of dovetails into what you're talking about. When I came into this new department here, again, we don't have a lot of history, but we have some, and there are some good traditions. One of which we have a lot of volunteers. When they go on to career service somewhere else, we take their pass tag. We have a little plastic passport style, and we put it underneath the fire department patch of where they go. There's a big display board in the fire station. So it's like, and a lot of those guys come back. But one of the first chiefs, I never met him. I wouldn't, boy, he's been long since gone. One of the first chiefs of my department, and we don't have a lot of great written history, was a man named William Ernst. And his daughter is one of the first ladies auxiliary members, but also still lives in the community with her husband, who's one of our longest serving volunteers. And, he's suffered strokes, heart attacks, everything you can possibly imagine. But, I call him the Iron Man because, you just, no matter what, he's still there. So we had a Firefighter of the Year award, and certainly, keeping with tradition, we name a Firefighter of the Year every year. That was done well before I became a chief here. But I say, you know what? We need to memorialize, because in the sands of time, William Ernst Jr. is he's an obscure name. Nobody knows who he is. Our Firefighter of the Year award is the William J. Ernst Jr. Firefighter of the Year award. So now one of our first chiefs of that department, the person whose shoulders I'm standing on, who I've never met, is memorialized in that department. So that's an opportunity, no matter how traditional or long-standing your department is, how much they've been into tradition, not into tradition, is you can look and look at the people who've built that. I mean, Skip, one of these days there might be a toilet seat in Ocean City named after you. Who knows? But the whole thing behind it is, take these people that have been part of our history, part of our culture, and don't let their name and contribution go by the wayside. I'm not saying that we got to create a medal for every person that ever existed in our fire department, but look at these people who were huge, huge building blocks of our departments. And I said this to Ben, Skip, and you'll remember this vividly. At the old Salisbury Fire Headquarters, I still remember upstairs in the meeting room, if you went into the meeting room and you're kind of looking back towards the chief's offices on the left-hand side, there were always like kind of flip boards. And they had all the pictures literally from some of the big industrial mill fires back in the 1800s and early 1900s, where the city of Salisbury, horse-drawn steamers were operating. And it was just fascinating to me, even coming from an older East Coast Fire Department, to go and see even more history when we were up there in Salisbury and look through that. And then you saw some common names, that are still in that fire department today. And I've had the privilege of serving either directly or indirectly with some of those people. And actually, Ben, can you pop up that one of those pictures I sent you and see if Skip, this isn't ancient, but Skip, do you recognize anybody in this picture? It's a little water damage, but can you throw that close up to him? The second one I sent you?
Yeah.
That's my boy,
Yes, it is.
Billy. Yeah, when he was
Yes.
on my ladder company. Yeah,
Yes,
my son.
But back up to the other one, Ben. That skip was a controlled burn in Berlin when all of us used to get together. And if you look, there's Billy on the far left. There's Bobby Massey, Raymond Redden, the guy back there in the black coat from Deal Island Chance Fire Department, Steve Willing, he's actually a pastor now. I don't mean to laugh. I just, but a great guy, myself. I mean, this is what we used to do. And when we had a controlled burn, we would get together, the guys from Berlin, Salisbury, Ocean City, Ocean Pines, all points in between. But yep. So, when you talk about a skip carry, and then you're looking at the left-hand side of this picture, this is back in the, late 80s in this one.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
And there's your boy.
Yeah.
In that one. So, yeah, and you see a lot of those repetitive names, and these are people that we've, look at the history and what they've contributed to our industry over the years. And even if you're a first-generation firefighter, your history is now. And that's a powerful thing. You don't realize it yet, but you live part of your history now and be good at it, and you seek, not to make a name for yourself, but just seek to leave a good impression that when you leave this industry, that they look back upon you favorably to say, hey, you were somebody that helped us build this department, this industry, this engine company, this truck company, whatever it is, doesn't matter. And whether you were operational, administrative, whatever the case is, live your history now.
Trevor, in your department, do you have or have you tried to get pictures of, oh, damn it, wait a minute. I'm used to touch screens and I can't get this damn arrow to go where I want it to go. Do you have pictures of your previous chiefs?
Actually, Skip, it's funny you say that. That's an endeavor I'm trying to get into. We have one of our former mayors actually served as one of our assistant chiefs some years ago, and is kind of the unofficial town historian. And what I'm trying to do is update the website. I'm not a tech guy by any means, but I'm trying to not only get the original history. I have some of the old minutes from the first organizational meetings, but I want to get pictures and put them up, that we have a timeline. And we might not be able to get all of it, but the longer we wait, more the memories, some of these things fade, some of the pictures, just like the ones I put up. And I said, Ben, some of those were, water damaged, and, things happen over time. But either way, the short answer to you is, yes, Skip, I'm working vigorously right now to try to not only obtain some of our history, but preserve some of our history. And even like Ocean City, well, I'm sorry, I'll say this and I'll be done with it. Even like Ocean City, I look at a lot of the great history we have here, there, a lot of the great names. Do you remember when we put the boot prints, the stencils of the boot prints on the ground? And to me, that's something very significant. Baltimore City wound up doing that. And I've told people this before. When I had the privilege and opportunity to go up to Baltimore City Fire Department and teach at a rookie class or a probie class, and Tim Jershai was with me, and he stood in the 115th set of boot prints there, and we asked the recruit class what these mean, and they kind of had an idea. But when you could point over and say, "Do you see where that man over there is standing? That firefighter, he's standing in his grandfather's boot prints." This is a living, breathing person. So whether again you're first generation or 12th generation, your history is your history. Be proud of it, and make an impression.
Why I asked is, we had one heck of a time in Salisbury of getting all of the old ones, because it goes back to 1872, and in Ocean Pines, Jackie and I managed to get all of them, which wasn't nowhere near as long, up until we left, and then I don't know what they've done now. Can you see this?
Mm-hmm.
That's Billy, my oldest, with his coat and helmet and stuff. I was number 7. He was 7.5. One of the other things, Trevor, that you mentioned is, honor. You get an honor. And all of us here have got some honors, some awards and stuff, state or Firehouse Magazine or whatever. But in 51 years, one of the most rewarding things that I received when we did, and Brian Records and I were in charge of the museum room, and the new fire station when they were building it. And the wall that's going, ironically, goes down by the restroom and the offices. They put different things, different people. And until that got put up, I did not know that they had selected me to be one of the people on that wall. That's been the neatest thing. And I've been in MSFA and I've got their awards and stuff, and I've got Firehouse Magazine and a couple of awards from the MSP. But that, very simple. And they kept it from me, you know. I mean, yeah, I would look, we'd have the layouts and there'd be the pictures of the different people, of Tony and Tubner and some of the other ones. And they kept that complete. But that simple thing like that, like you said, that's you know, that's the and every time I walk in there, I walk by, look at it, you know, see how handsome I am. You know, I put a picture up when I was assistant chief. I know, Bobby. And I would have rather have done it with a ladder captain. But I think the thing that I will remember most about 51 years are the friends, stuff I made in the good times, like coming down the stairway, or like my battery is very low. Uh-oh.
It's so low it cut him off.
No, that wasn't his pacemaker battery, right? That was his phone battery.
I think he went back to his laptop.
Hey,
Oh,
Ben,
okay.
I'll go ahead and do my closing comments and get that
Yeah.
done and out of the way for an hour now. So Skip asked a really good question. He asked what we thought about the new apparatus. And I try to, everyone's heard of a litmus test, right? So like if a girl's nervous that she's late, she takes a little litmus test and it's either she's pregnant or she's not pregnant. So it's a yes or a no. Okay. You know what I'm talking about, right, Ben? Yeah. So my litmus test in the fire service is, in my opinion, the fire service has become very engine centric. For 49 out of 50 fires, you don't have anybody trapped. It tends to lead us down the road of being very heavy on engine work and policies and procedures. So I'm going to tell a little bit of a story, and then this is my litmus test for everything, for equipment, for training, for SOGs, for anything that you could think of in the fire service. Use this. So you're an 8-year-old and you're home with your parents and you're having a great day. And it's a wonderful day. Mom's cooked your favorite food. You know, she's cooked you some grilled cheese and some baked beans, and you love it. And you're tired, and Mom sends you up to bed. She tucks you in, gives you a kiss, and she goes away. And Mom and Dad spend the time to have a little couple of drinks. They in turn go up to bed, and poor Mom has forgot that pot of beans on the stove and left the stove on. So the stove catches on fire, and you're sleeping. You're 8 years old. You're very happy. You're comfortable. You're in your favorite blanket with your favorite pajamas, and you hear a noise. And the noise is a smoke detector going off. You've never heard that, and it makes you curious as to what's going on. And you notice smoke coming into your bedroom door, and you wonder what that is. And now you become a little bit scared. And so now you go to the bedroom door, and you open the door and yell for Mom and Dad, and there's no reply. And now as an 8-year-old, you're very, very scared. And you try to go to Mom and Dad's room, but your natural instincts say this is bad. And so you go back into your room, and now you're terrified. And you know that there's a fire, and you don't know what to do. Now you start to feel sleepy. You're tired. And finally you lay down on that floor and you lose consciousness. So whenever you talk about designing an apparatus, developing a training technique, making an SOG, discussing staffing with your councils, whenever you talk about any of that stuff, anything that impacts getting to that 8-year-old in flannel pajamas laying on that bedroom floor is a really, really big deal. So walk lightly, think hard, and everything you design. I don't want firefighters to have cancer. I hate cancer. I've had loved ones die from cancer. I get it. I know that we don't go to a lot of fires with people trapped. I understand that. I know our staffing has been gutted over the years from either a lowering of volunteerism or a lowering of money to pay for fire departments. But all of those things said, at the end of the day, what we're here for, we talk about the Maltese Cross, we talk about the helmet. It's all about that 8-year-old's got 8 breaths left, and it's our job to get them out. And so always think about your victims when you're creating these policies. Always think about your victims, and then you won't go astray. It doesn't mean you can do everything, but at least you have the focus where it needs to be, because when we're standing outside in our $500,000 apparatus, wearing our $5,000 worth of gear, we're in a safe place. That 8-year-old is not. So that's how I always try to approach decision making with training and everything else, because I think a lot of times the poor 8-year-old in flannel pajamas get lost in the wash in our decision making, and that is truly why we're here. We shouldn't just say we're here for life first and then property. We should be about that. So that's my closing statements. I'm so sorry Skip dropped off of here because he's a wonderful guy. I've known him for a very long time. And thank you, both of you guys, for being on here with me. It was kind of a fun time to just beat around a tradition and things like that.
Thanks, Bobby. You muted yourself, Trevor.
I'm sorry. And Bobby, thank you very much. And truer words haven't been said. You're absolutely correct. We talk about this quite a bit. And hopefully it resonates and rings true in some people's ears. And that's why I know in Skip's area of the country right now, actually where you guys are, we're having some pretty horrific weather come across, and they were experiencing some severe lightning and power outages, especially where he was. You saw the flashes of lightning earlier. But to Bobby's point, that's something that Skip passed along, very, very early on. I mean, he comes from a different generation. He passed along all those great best practices to us, but everything was centered around the people we're there to serve. And yes, I mean, and as Skip had put one time, I don't even know if he remembers this or not, when we always talked about, who priority number one was, we always defaulted to the firefighter because, we got to take care of our own. But he said, look, there's priority 1 and priority 1A. It's not priority 1 and priority 2. And it's you, the people you're serving with, and the people you're serving for. And he lumped them all into one big group. So there was never any striation between the three. He said, look, we're all important. That, to Bobby's point, that 8-year-old kid in the flannel pajamas at the end of the hallway might not have much of a chance unless we get there and do the best we can with our knowledge and training and making sure that we're giving our A game each and every time. And at the same time, we wouldn't be here if there wasn't that need. And so, the people we serve are, just on that level playing field with the people that we're serving with and ourselves. And, yes, we can kind of pat ourselves on the back and say, yes, we do this, we do that. And, which I'm not taking anything away from us or our industry, but Bobby's point is very well founded. And people like Skip were always the one to say, hey, are you willing to make that push? And if you are willing to make that push, I'm going to give you every possible advantage through training, knowledge, experience to be able to get down the end of that hallway. And if you can't get there, it just wasn't meant to be. But it's not going to be for lack of trying or lack of knowledge or lack of training. And so I think that's an important thing to pass along. Again, I see Skip kind of flashing down there in the bottom right-hand corner. I hope he's able to come on. But, Skip's one of those guys who
I'm
he's
back,
always
gang.
Oh, yay. Look, well, you might want to go. I was getting ready to say nice stuff about you while you were going. But, but Skip, he's always one of those guys who, that was the first and foremost. It was service for others, and how are we going to get the job done the best we can, and be a practitioner of your craft. And it was always that pride in saying, if you're going to be a firefighter, it's not that the public looks at you as a firefighter, but also that person you're going to rescue and your brothers and sisters. One of the greatest compliments that I can imagine receiving, and I've heard it a couple times, which I'm very grateful for, is when one of the people you work with go, wow, that guy or that girl, they're a firefighter. And it doesn't matter about the glitter shit on your collar or the speaking trumpets or anything else. At the end of the day, when they say, when I can look and say, hey, Skip, I see your love line on your hand. I'm not sure what that means, what's going to happen later on, but that's, never mind. But when someone can say that, Ben Waple, Skip Carey, Bobby McGee, they're a firefighter, regardless of what rank or title or anything else that you've ascended to during your career. That is the beginning and the end, because that is the tradition of service that we have. That's what's been taught. Skip has made a point of that, to bring that to the generations, and he's served for well over a half a century. Think about that, people. Half a century of not only doing the job, but making sure others can carry those things on in the future. So with that, I want to say thank you, all of you. But Skip, much love and respect, brother, and thank you for being on tonight. So with that, I'll turn it over to Skip for your final comments, and then Ben, you'll take us home.
Okay. As far as I'm on my phone now, I finally found it. And I like I say, I hate technology. But
is it a rotary phone? Never mind. Go ahead.
And it's not a mode either. First off, thank you immensely for even asking me to do this. That within itself is honor. The second thing is more of a personal nature. To each one of you, I consider you my brothers. When I say that, I don't say that to everybody that's a fireman. I say that because I know one very simple thing. If I were trapped in a building and either one of you would come in for me, one of two things would happen. I'd get out of the building, or I'd die with a friend. That I mean from the bottom of my heart. That's how much I think of the three of you. And it's just one of the best things in the world. The friends that I've made, and that doesn't mean we always agree. But that means that when it comes down to life or death, we're there for either one of us. And the end result is that we're willing. I feel you all are, and I know I am. I'm willing to, if it means me sacrificing to get you out, I'll do it. Because you're my brothers, you guys. And I'll put my grave thinking that. And I expect each and every one of you to be there, at least to drink the Guinness and the Jamesons at the wake, and to tell the story. Not in church, but at the wake. You can tell the story, all of them. Even the ones from out at FDIC, Bobby, when we roomed together. So, guys, be safe out there, for God's sake. You're still on the line. Be safe, because they're killing us, and they're trying to. I love you all very much. I love you.
Cheers, Skip. Love you, brother.
Cheers.
Yeah. Slanche. Whoops. I can't. Yeah, there we go.
Well, we'll wrap it up here and take Thirsty Thursday number 25 to across the finish line. Again, thank you, Skip, for joining us. It's always a pleasure to get to chat. It's even better when we get to talk about the history and traditions of the fire service that we love so dearly. For those new folks, if you're new to the fire service, you're watching this and you want to learn more about the history and tradition, one of my favorite things that I've read or that I've looked into or that I've researched, and I'm going to throw a little credit to Rick Lasky, but the Pride and Ownership book from Fire Engineering, it's fantastic. Get that. I can tell you, Salisbury Fire Department, we've read the book. We use a lot of the stuff out of it, and there's still a bunch more good stuff in there. So if you're curious about it, get the book, read it. It's fantastic. I've actually read it a couple of times. in addition to doing that, talk to your senior people. We've talked before about how the senior man, the senior woman is so important in the fire service, in your firehouse. Talk to them. Learn the history, learn the tradition of your department, okay? Understand why Salisbury Fire Department, Ocean City, wherever you are, does something a specific way. There's a reason for it. Okay, so understand that. Have an understanding of what your guys do and continue that tradition. We always say that there's two things that firefighters hate, and that's change and the way things are. But we're going to change, right? Skips all go from horses to steamers to motorized fire apparatus. We're going to see it change to something in the future. And like, we don't like the way it is now. We don't like the way it is in the future, but we're going to be there. We're going to see it, and we're going to help facilitate it. So know where your department came from, have a part and be an active part in where it's going, and keep doing what you're doing and make the fire service the best that you can. So with that being said, we are heading out for tonight. Thank you again for everybody for joining us, and we will see you April 1st. That's not a joke. We will see you April Fools. Cheers, brothers. It's always good to hang out, have a drink with you guys. And good night.